Thibaut.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos. Vamos a hacer
feeling after everything, and how Real Madrid feeling going into this massive game against Arsenal? I feel great. I had a small problem, but it was something that I had to work on day to day. But for the last few days I've been coming back, and now I feel 100%. I feel good. I think the team, we have to continue. Obviously we lost against Valencia, but now the focus is on the Champions League. It's a huge game tomorrow, and we have to try and win. How you doing, Thibaut? Arsenal scored lots of goals from set pieces this season in the Premier League. Real Madrid have conceded many, including against Valencia. What's been lacking for you in this area? Have you been lacking concentration? We worked on it yesterday. We know that we have to try and defend situations like that, and also try and not concede many corners. It's a question of concentration. Sometimes, the quality of the rival can cause us problems. They might be well positioned, but we know how hard it can be to defend against, good teams. But we're ready to defend well against them, and we hope that. And we think we've prepared well for us. How are you feeling after your, muscular injury? Do you feel you're at 100%? Yeah. I had a few injuries at the start of the season. One on my abductor, one in the game against Athletic. I took a few blows in that game, and I think before perhaps I got back too early in the season when I had an injury. It was a minor thing, but now it's been quite a minor thing again, and just working day to day. And we thought it was better to wait for this game instead of the weekend, so for my return. This morning, Saka said that Arsenal have not lost in the last 2 years in Champions League. Do you think it'll be a tough test tomorrow at the stadium? I didn't know that, but I don't think that really changes much. We've won 15 Champions League, but it doesn't really change anything. We know they're a strong team at home. There are teams who are very strong at home, and we know Arsenal are one of those teams. But I don't think that really changes much for the game tomorrow. Each game of football is different. Every stadium is different. Teams have come here many times this season and not been able to win. They've been strong at home for a long time this season. We know Arsenal are very strong at home. We know it's going to be a really tough game, and we'll have that on our minds tomorrow. We want to talk more about set pieces. Apart from the positioning of the defenders, Arsenal are very strong from set pieces. Will the movement they have in set pieces, will that cause problems for you? We'll defend like we defend. We tend to defend in a zonal system with blocks. other teams go man to man. Sometimes you have to try and use your intuition to guess if it's going to the first post, second post. We know that Arsenal will try and block me. You have to be switched on to that and try and defend against it. You can't go looking to ask for a foul. As a goalkeeper, it's important to analyse set pieces. And tomorrow we'll try and be strong in that area because set pieces are very important. They can win a game like that if you get a goal from set pieces. It can really help you. This season, Madrid have been struggling to finish off games, leaving things to the end. Do you think that will work against the rival, knowing that Madrid have that capacity to come back late in games? And what will you do to try and make sure you're not shaky to the end? You'll be always trying to find solutions early in games. And sometimes, physically we improve as games go on, and we have players who can make a difference. They come on, give us fresh legs. That's very important in situations like this. If we can have games wrapped up by the 60th minute, it's better, but that's part of football, Each game is different, just depends what happens,
Teammate Kevin De Bruyne was announced that he will leave Manchester City. Just like you at Real Madrid, he's been with that club for so long. What was your idea when you heard that, and where do you rate him if you look at the best players that Belgium has had?
No, for sure, he's one of the best ever players to play for in Belgian national team and with the Belgian nationality. Also in the Premier League, I think obviously winning 6 Premier Leagues. I think what he gave to City, I guess he's one of the best players also to have played in the Premier League, and obviously last time over the national team I kind of felt maybe that he was going to move on, so it was not entirely surprised to hear him say this now last week, but I'm sure he's a great player and one of the greatest in the Premier League, and obviously I hope next year also with Belgium he can still be at the highest level and that we can reach the World Cup and have a great World Cup together.
Hey, welcome back to London, Thibaut. The Arsenal players actually stayed late to watch your penalty shootout in the tunnel just down there. They've got a huge amount of respect for the 15 titles Real Madrid have won and all you have to offer. But what is your view of what Arsenal have done since you've left, the coming through of the coast, Saka, the transformation of Arteta? What's the view of the Real Madrid dressing room? Because in this country everyone's in awe of what Real Madrid have done. What do you all think what Arsenal have done?
No, I think we have a lot of respect for Arsenal. I have a lot of Arsenal friends, so supporters are friends of fans of Arsenal. So obviously, I know they have been doing great. They have been close to winning a Premier League, and they're playing well. They had a young team with some experienced players. Have a good mix. They defend well. They can press high. They can defend in a low block. They are quick on the counter-attack. They have people who can score easily. Obviously, they have the set pieces, so we know it's a team hard to break down and a team that can score easily also. So we have a lot of respect for them, and we analysed well how they play and where we can hopefully hurt them and where they cannot hurt us. So we hope on a great game tomorrow, but obviously we hope to win. But I think Arsenal is doing great, and I guess it's a matter of time before they win another trophy. Hopefully. We can pass in the Champions League, but they are doing great.
Thibaut, a lot of Arsenal fans will be very happy to see you here. They were hoping you'd be injured and not travel. You are here. The fact you're giving a news conference, does that mean that you're definitely going to start, and are you fully fit?
Yeah, I'm fully fit, so if I start that you have to ask the manager after. But I'm fit. I feel good. It was also not a big issue, so I could train in the gym and do my routines. And I have been on the pitch for the last day, so I feel fine and 100%, and hopefully ready to help the team tomorrow.
Memories of the Emirates. You obviously played matches here, evening matches as well. Good atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a great place to play at. The pitch is great. It's always a good atmosphere. Always had your nice games with Chelsea. Also a loss, so hopefully tomorrow is different. But yeah, it's always up for a good game.
This October, in the press conference before the game, you said there's been a lot of criticism. You said some of the criticism this team has received has been over the top. We played quite badly against Valencia. We wanted to win that game, but we failed to score a penalty when they went and scored a goal. They made some good saves, and then in the last minute to concede the goal. I don't think we're playing badly, like some of the critics have said. I think we're going well, but some of the results haven't matched that. But we're here now, and all the competitions are alive. We're competing in everything, and we're going to fight until the very end. And the team knows what we have to do. The most important thing is the results, though. I wanted to ask you about the change you see in Real Madrid in the Champions League, and how they can just flick the switch, play at a different level. How do you explain that? I don't think there's really a big change. Perhaps it's more noticeable because it's the Champions League, but we take every game at 100% seriousness. It's not like we cruise in La Liga. Every game is important. Sometimes being in the Champions League, the level's a bit higher. It means people raise their game a bit, perhaps, But also in Champions League, you're punished for every error you make, and more so than in La Liga. So maybe there's a small change because we know we need to be 100%. Continuing with that question regarding the criticism you've received, do the players choose games where they're going to be more motivated, or they're going to play better? Is it like that? No, it's not like that. Well, we know what we have to do to play well in every game, to play the best we can. Sometimes a journalist might think one thing, that players don't approach games with the same motivation, but that's not true. We don't see it like that as players. We're all teammates. We always want to play that, and we don't choose which games we're going to perform in. It's not like that. There's motivation for every game we compete in. In Champions League, perhaps it's extra high, but we give 100% in every game. We do it for the badge, for the shirt, for this club. We're all fans, we're all passionate about that. We always give 100%, we always leave everything on the pitch. No, it's not like we choose which games we're going to play well in. Champions League. Do you think that's going to help you? What will you need going up against a team like Arsenal? We need courage, we need personality. We'll have to try and do the best, be very motivated. But I think a very important aspect of that is execution. When we've prepared for that for this game. Do you think the system with Vinicius in the very important game? Was he going to step up to it? I've not talked to him. I don't need to talk to him. You know, he could have played better in the Bernabeu at the weekend, but I don't need to talk to him about that. He's a young lad. He's going to have a great game tomorrow. No doubts about that. You think the dynamic will be different if they're given a penalty? Do you have someone who's the fixed taker? Would that change depending on the game? It's something we've thought about it, and we'll manage that tomorrow if the situation arises. There's been a lot of criticism of the team in La Liga, in Champions League. Do you understand that criticism? We can understand if we don't win games, you know, but if we're up against a tough team that are really strong, then if they're good at digging in, sinking deep, it can make things difficult for us. But we have to, the only thing we think about is preparing well for every game, managing things, and try to execute tomorrow. I wanted to ask you about Fede Valverde, if he's going to be playing on left back or in centre midfield. There's a question mark about that, and have a bit of a doubt. Valverde does so many things very well. He can play well in the centre, out on the flank. Can I think about that, or how he can contribute the most to the team? 2 seasons ago, in 2023, the team had a similar situation when they were in the quarterfinals of Champions League in La Liga, where they were a few points in front. Do you think you'll win one of these three tournaments you're in this season? The job we have to do is here. We have everything we need to try and win, to fight in every competition we're in until the very end. To win, it's all about putting in the effort. And then, if we do that, we can start thinking about next season. Arteta said this morning that Mbappe is someone who is a real leader for Real Madrid. It could be that, you know, a lot of people are tired, that the most important player we have is someone who's tired. No. You know, he's happy with me, he supports me, he supports me, and that's what is the most important. You know, the most important thing is that the most important person at the club doesn't get tired. There's been a lot of criticism. How do you relate to that? You know, I've had the criticism. We shouldn't be thinking about the criticism when we have a game, you know, every 3 days. We didn't do well against Valencia. We've analysed it, we've evaluated it. But I'm not thinking too much about the game at the weekend. The most important thing is the game tomorrow. You know, it's not decisive though, because there's another leg at the Bernabeu.
Ask you about Real Madrid's experience in this competition, the fact that you've won so many times, it's incredible inner strength and inner belief. How much of an advantage will that be against a team like Arsenal to win? The experience, the inner belief that you have.
The experience in this competition is really important, really important. The experience, the knowledge, because the experience means you are not afraid to play this kind of games that put on you a lot of pressure, because a really important competition, and so this is come si dice eliminatoria in inglese? Face to face, 800 face to face, and so a lot of pressure on this game. The experience is really important. The fact to have a lot of players that already played this kind of game give to the team, to the players, also to the younger, more confidence.
Carlo, Kian Sabani from Managing Madrid. A lot of the dialogue about tomorrow's game has been about set pieces, specifically Real Madrid being poor, defending set pieces this year, Arsenal having strengths, exploiting opponents in set pieces. I'm curious, what do those conversations look like in training? How do you prepare for something like that, a problem like that?
Of course, they are really strong, really dangerous in this situation. We try to defend as better we can. We have also to take in consideration that when we have set pieces, we can create damage because we scored 3 goals in the last 2 games on set pieces. And so this is important part of the game, and then there is all the rest.
Buenas tardes, ahí Luis Canal de Francia. Quería preguntarte sobre Martín Odegaard. Hace 10 años llegó en el Madrid y
Martin Odegaard was at Madrid 10 years ago. What do you think of his evolution as a player? I saw him as a real young player. The talent he has now is the same talent he had when he was 17 years old. He's had the character, the courage to go elsewhere to seek out new experiences and then become one of the best players in Europe.
Tomorrow, if Camavinga, Modric, Rudiger or Endrick get a yellow, they're suspended for the second leg. Does that change how aggressive they can be when they play, or your game plan?
No, we are not going to change this for this reason. We know this, but I think if they are not able to play in Madrid, we have a replacement because we don't have Tchouaméni, that of course suspended, that can play the next game.
Carlo, aquí José Padilla, defensa central.
We're here talking about Arteta. He's doing a fantastic job. He arrived here when I was at Everton in 2020. He's brought the scene to the top of Europe. He's doing a fantastic job. And he's built a complete team. There aren't many teams who I would say are complete in Europe. There are lots of teams who do certain things very well, but there aren't many teams who do everything as well as Arsenal do.
About a former player the other day at Madrid. Who? Martin Odegaard.
Yes.
As you had him in Real Madrid earlier. Why wasn't there a future for him at Santiago Bernabeu? How do you rate him today?
Because when he arrived, as I said, he was really young. He didn't have space to play in the first team because in front he had Ronaldo, Benzema, James Rodriguez, and he didn't find maybe the space to show his quality. He was really young. He decided to go away to have possibility to play, and I think honestly he did well because now he's back in one of the most important club in Europe.
Ask 2 questions, you las preguntas.
Carlo, hello. You're Mr. Champion. I'm already in Spanish, but just in English, he's just starting off in his Champions League adventure, relatively speaking. Do you feel that he's doing a good job and he's got a big future at Arsenal?
Arteta?
Yes.
He's doing a fantastic job, of course. He's at the top in the Premier League. He's in the quarter-final of Champions League. From 2020 until now, he did really well. The team is stronger compared to the past, and it's going to be stronger in the future. Of course, his job is fantastic.
Última pregunta, last question.
Terminando el periódico, dijiste no hace mucho que es casi imposible que los jugadores estén siempre.
It wasn't a long time It wasn't a long time ago that it's very complicated. Always ask 100% of your players, because you need to have 100% mental effort. You can't always have like 100% physical level, especially with so many games. It's tough to maintain that. So, perhaps in situations like this at the moment, it's more necessary to have that mental fortitude. We were able to give Asensio a rest the other day because he was really exhausted after playing so many games. And we've had a lot of injuries, which hasn't really allowed us to rotate as much as we would have liked. But having said that, I think the team, nonetheless, having said that, are in a good situation physically. And we can play every game at full intensity. Thank you.